Hey, so I want to talk about two TV shows today. One of them, in my consideration, is good and one of them is bad. These are my opinions, however, I'd like to point that out now. This video will contain spoilers and I'm going to keep jumping between the two shows, so if you've seen one but not the other, then just be careful, I guess. In this video I want to compare Luther and Sherlock, because I think Sherlock is a good show and it does what Luther does, but does it well in a way. I guess one of the biggest things that I find better about Sherlock than I do about Luther is the characters in the show. Well, in Luther, I just don't care about the characters even slightly because they're so inconsistent. And I don't mind characters changing their perspective in a show, but there has to be a logical reason for it to happen. You have to see it. It'll be like the smallest reason and it'll be a huge leap in a person's personality or how they treat someone. Like in the first season, Ian, who is Luther's best friend at the time, in one of the first episodes you see Ian come to drink with Luther because Luther needs someone, and you think, okay, so he's the best friend of this character, he will be there, hopefully we'll see that kind of friendship flourish. But then, again, spoilers, he goes and kills people out of nowhere. And there's this whole scene where Luther and Ian are just pointing guns at each other. And it's all tell and no show. That's the problem with it. That's the problem they're having with it. They're trying to do things too quickly. They're having to fill gaps in the narrative by just saying it. And that's not what you need in a show. You actually hear Luther saying to Ian, oh, all these years you've told me not to kill people, this is me telling you not to kill people. It's like, if you had actually put some time into this to establish their friendship, you wouldn't need to tell us that. But now you do, because this is completely out of nowhere. I don't know. And how they do that in Sherlock, a good way to show that in Sherlock, and how they do well with it, it's just the whole scene where Sherlock comes home to find some clues that maybe Mrs. Hudson's been hurt somehow. And it's just, Sherlock's been given to you as a character that shows no emotions. This is a moment where it shows that he does care, and all those emotions come to the surface. He just doesn't show them well. It's the writing and such good acting that really shows all the emotion that's there, and he doesn't say a thing. Like, at one point the camera cuts to Mrs. Hudson's face and you see a cut. And it cuts to the guy's hand and you see a bit of blood in his ring. And you make that connection. They don't need to say anything out loud. And that lets you be so much more angry than if they had just told you. Another great comparison I can make between the shows is how they deal with someone not being wanted by the person they like. This happens in both the shows. Pretty much the beginning of Luther, and again this is the point of all tell and no show, we find out that his wife doesn't particularly want to be with him anymore and hasn't told him this. So he takes a rage at her. Anger affects him in such a way that it makes him a worse character. He isn't able to deal with the anger in a way that would help him or would show him off in a better light. I know you're not meant to look at him perfectly, but I personally think you should have a certain amount of ethics in your main character. So hard to explain. It affects his work and it affects his life in really negative ways. Whereas on the other side, again with Molly this time, I think in the beginning you're meant to see her as a very kind of weak character almost because of how she likes Sherlock, but it's very clear that he doesn't like her. You can see that Molly doesn't let that affect her. I think she appreciates the fact that Sherlock doesn't like her and doesn't hold that against them as a thing. And that's what's great. And in the second season, she still helps him. She can see that he is a caring person. He's just not that good at showing it. I think that makes her a stronger character. It's something you definitely see in the third season. Like, there's no longer any doubt that she isn't a strong character in the third season. I'm making some really bad, this makes more sense in my head. I'm making some really bad points here because these all made more sense in my head, but I can't describe things. Here are my points. Have a joke. Knock knock. Who's there? Insect. Insect who? Insect your name and address here.